Hello, something a little bit different today. I have purchased 2 months of Scrawlr boxes, and if anyone doesn't know what this is, it's a subscription box. I'm not being sponsored for this, I bought these myself. So there's this one, and then I should have another video coming this month sometime, for the next Scrawlr box, but that's all I can afford right now because, as some of you might know, I am a student and I do not have a ton of money right now, especially since I'm moving into a new apartment. So this is, well, not a one-off, a two-off, I don't know. So yes, this is what I'm going to do in today's video. So I'll get started. I have not looked inside this. I may have seen some spoilers on Instagram and Twitter, but I have not looked inside my box yet, so this is the first time I'm seeing it as well. So this is what the box looks like, and then so it comes neatly wrapped in this nice tissue paper, with this a little bit of information about the featured artist. So it tells me that this box is about hand lettering, so that's quite interesting, something a bit different. I don't really do stuff like this. There's a YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. And then this is, I'm assuming, is what I'm supposed to be working on, the paper. So this is hand lettering guidelines. So I'm assuming that's what I'm meant to be doing my lettering on. So we'll be using that very soon. Let's get this box out of the way. Okay, so inside this is, I like the sticker, I might keep the sticker. Okay, so let's unwrap this. So this is a little bit of information about what I've got inside the box. I'll keep that to one side so I know. So this is the Scrawlrchallenge, and from other people that I've seen do these videos, this is kind of like a theme and, as it suggests, a challenge that I can do. So I write Scrawlr box. And then the Scrawlr box sticker, which will probably go on my tripod with all my other stickers. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, this looks really interesting. Okay, so firstly we have this Kuretake, I don't know if I'm saying that right, cartoonist brush pen. So in my last video you will have seen me use, in fact, the exact same H2O pen as this that I filled up with black ink and alcohol myself. So this is probably just a very much better version of that, and then this is just the empty version of this that you saw in my last video. So we've got the Zig brush H2O water brush in large, so let's open that. So yeah, this is just a water brush. Most people use them with watercolours, so you fill this part up with water, screw that in, and then you just give it a bit of a squeeze and some water comes out of that. So this just looks like a filled version with ink. So I'm not going to attempt to say what it's called again, but it says it's a brush tip marker with smooth flowing ink for manga, sumi-e, brush lettering and more. So it's brush pen number 22. Okay, so that's what it looks like. It's a little bit bigger, so that's it, base to base, so that's a lot bigger really, isn't it? I'll zoom in. And it's got it's a lot smaller nib to that one. So that's what the nibs look like. They're different from the H2 brush and the ink brush. So I'll give that a try in a second. You get a nice refresher to eat with the box. We'll go with these. These are Lyra Aqua Brush Duos. So these are double-sided. Focus. There we go. Aqua Brush Duos. So it says these double-ended fibre tipped pens have a broad brush tip on one side and a fine bullet nib on the other. Inks are water-based, light, fast, and can also be mixed. Try adding the darker colour directly to the lighter nib. So that's kind of like a... oh, where are we going? This is kind of like a brush nib. And there's the bullet nib. Okay, I'll test all these out in a second. So we get an orange colour and a red colour. There we go. Next, this doesn't seem to be on the card. This just looks like a ballpoint pen, but it's kind of like an ink pen with a bit of a bullet nib. But this isn't on the card, so I'm not sure. Oh, here it is, yeah. Pentel Touch Brush Sign Pen. So that's pretty interesting. In blue. Then we have a Sharpie Whiteboard marker with a chisel nib. So there's a chisel nib. So as this is like a typography type box, I'll be trying all these out. So these are watercolour duos, gold and silver. So it doesn't say much. It just says this small but highly quality Koh-i-nor, I don't know if I'm saying that right, watercolour pack provides two 30mm watercolour discs to test your watercolour brush lettering skills. Try these metallic colours on some darker paper to see them shine. So that'd be quite cool. I don't really have any watercolours in gold or silver, so that's nice and new. So we can try those out. Let's do a couple of testers and then I'll get on to creating some lettering with all this stuff. Let's get this book out. Okay, so we'll try some stuff in this book maybe. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the middle. Okay, let's go here. Okay, so let's try out the brush pen with ink in. So I need to give this a little squeeze, allow the ink to come out. This might take a while, so I'll keep doing that whilst we get something else on. Sharpie Whiteboard marker, let's try that. So chisel nib. So it's just like dry on paper, but on a whiteboard I'm assuming it's good. So you've got all your different line width that you can do with a chisel nib. So that's that. Let's try Pentel Touch Brush Sign Pen. This is in blue, so yeah, you can get different line widths there, assuming. So you can get quite a thin line width, and then you can get quite a thick one if you press a bit harder. Yeah, that's quite nice actually. The Aqua Brush Duo pens, so we've got orange. These are water based, so they will eat through paper. Let's try the red. Yeah, just like any other brush nib really. Let me get some water for these. Let's just suck some water up into this. Okay, let's try out these watercolours. Okay, so gold and silver. Let's try out silver first. Okay, so you just use it like any other brush. And, oh, that's running. Okay, so let's just say that the Pentel brush pen is not waterproof. Yeah, it's okay. It's not too bad. We'll have to see. It's not very pigmented, but they'd work fine. Okay, let's try out the gold. So yeah, not pigmented, but I'm sure they do the job. Not too bad. Yeah, so I'll probably have to get this going a little bit, so it's going to be too long for this video, but stay tuned and you'll probably see what I'm going to create with all this stuff. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I really kind of went out of my comfort zone with this box. It was very difficult for me to do the lettering, and as you can see in the video, I started off with the brush pen, the ink-filled brush pen, and noticed that the paper provided was kind of waterproof, and I'm thinking back on it now, I think that was because of the Sharpie whiteboard pen, because when I used the whiteboard pen in there it was absolutely fine, and you can kind of rub it off. So I kind of ruined my 2 pieces of paper given, and I thought I'll just go into my sketchbook and do a bit of practice. Yeah, so my first practice was with the Lyra Aquabrush Duo pens, and I actually really enjoyed it. I had to kind of sketch it out in pencil first, but you know, it's not my usual style of artwork anyway, so I would have normally done that to begin with. And I kind of liked how the lettering turned out. Added some little extra things on. Yeah, so this first piece was just the duo pens, a little bit of the paint, the watercolour paint, and the Pentel Touch. I was really struggling to fit this Pentel Touch in with everything because of the colours, because it's obviously blue with my red and orange Lyra pens, so I really struggled to kind of fit it in there, but I did my best with this piece anyway. So I'll just talk a bit about the pens in general. I actually really enjoyed the pens, although they're water based and I'm obviously used to the alcohol based pens. I found that they really blended quite nicely, and there was kind of a nice flow to the ink when I was using it, which was very nice. So I would definitely actually love to try out some more of these Lyra Aquabrush pens in the future, maybe in some other colours. You'll see in the video that I was struggling to squeeze the ink out of my ink brush pen, but I stupidly hadn't read the instructions and noticed that I needed to take that yellow band off to release the ink into the actual pen, but in the end I did discover that's how I had to do that, so I ended up doing that. Yeah, so this is the second test I did, and I thought that although the watercolours weren't very pigmented on white paper, I thought, why not try it on dark paper? So I got my dark paper pad out and sketched out Scrawlrbox again, and I was sticking to the Scrawlrchallenge because I thought I want to kind of test and stretch my boundaries of what I usually do, and that's why I stuck with the Scrawlrchallenge, and it's meant to be a challenge anyway, so yeah. So the
watercolours actually turned out really pretty on the black paper, as you can see, very, very pigmented, and when it dried it was very, very shiny and nice. So I would definitely use these on black paper more often, and you'll see how I use it in a bit further and stretch how I could use them in a second. After this piece, I thought I'd try out some normal artwork, something not lettering, not to do with lettering, let's say. So with the colours I had, I actually thought, oh, it looks like a sunset, so I thought a silhouette of a sunset with the black and the two colours. So I did actually do that. I did a silhouette of my Rhodesian Ridgeback dog's head and put a sunset behind it, and I loved it at first, and then I added a bit too much of the gold and silver watercolour paint to it, so I actually ruined it, so I didn't include the footage of that, because after that I moved on to this that you're watching now. I really wanted to use the colours to the best potential, so I just sat and stared at these pens for hours looking at what they reminded me of, and they just reminded me of kind of like oriental lanterns that I hung up, you know, and so I thought, let's do that. I wanted to do something interesting as well, so I didn't want to do just one lantern, I wanted to do a set of lanterns, large, like descending into the back almost. So that's what I did, and I as you can see, I drew those out before filming because I didn't want to bore everyone with the drawing part, and then I used my ink filled brush pen just to cover the background, and after a while I was worried that I was going to use all this ink up, so I did revert to some Winsor & Newton ink, but it's very similar. It's waterproof though, whereas this brush pen isn't waterproof, it's water soluble. So I used my a H2O water brush and just applied the ink to the background, and I didn't do it very neatly. It's not, I didn't mind, because I kind of like when the light reflects off it, how the background doesn't look completely black in areas, it kind of has that shading and shadow. Then I started with the closest lantern that I've drawn, and did one coat of this Lyra aqua brush, and it coats, if you hold it sideways you can actually get a very even coverage until it dries, that is, and then it starts to kind of become a little bit streaky. Then I added another layer of the orange, and then red at the bottom and where I would see shadows in the lantern. I then used the brush pen again. This is why I didn't use it on the background too much, because I knew I'd need it for the main part and I didn't want to run the ink down too much. I actually started adding the detail, like some of the artwork on the lanterns, on that particular lantern that is. Before I even started doing that, after I'd finished the background, I forgot to mention, I used my sharpie marker to fill in just above and below the lamps where it kind of the fabric of the lamp would kind of close in and be held together with like a gold fixture. I did that because, as you saw before, the gold watercolour only looked good on black, so I thought I'd try it with the whiteboard marker. If I was to do it again, I think I'd use the ink pen rather than the whiteboard marker, purely because the whiteboard kind of became a bit waterproof when I was adding the oil paint, but I'll speak a bit more about that a bit later. So for the main lamp that you see on this piece, I did an even coverage of the orange colour and then laid it up so it was less streaky. At one point I dragged a little bit of black from the outside into the lantern, but at the end it kind of gives it a bit more character, like there's something inside the lantern creating a bit of a shadow, which is nice. I left a blank spot in the centre, as you can see, and then I used my water brush with plain water to just kind of bring some of the colour from the aqua brushes into the centre, and so it looks like it's covered in fabric, but it's got a light shining very bright behind it, because that's where the light would be on that particular lantern. After I did this, I added some more red in the shadows, and I actually, instead of using black straight on to do the details of the lanterns, because you know how lanterns are quite crinkled, it's kind of like a paper fabric and then it's crinkled to create kind of like a patterning on the outside, I used the red marker just to create those details at first, and then to add the black. And I didn't want it to be too dark black because I didn't want it to look cartoony, I want it to look very real. I added a slight bit of water, and then it watered the ink down of the black brush pen when I added it, and it kind of created it very, very light black detail, which was very good. And then in certain areas I added further black. As you can see here, I was adding more red, so the light part in the centre kind of stood out. And here you can see what I was talking about, the red going along. And the lettering I drew out first because I wanted it to be correct, because I found a reference with some lettering on, and I just used my black pen again just to go over that lettering, and I had to make sure that at the bottom it looked squished, because obviously the lantern would go inwards, and I wanted to create that shape. I didn't want it to be a flat lantern. I wanted, like I say, I wanted it to look very real, very shaped and nice. So here you can see that I wanted more shadow, and the red wasn't getting it dark enough, so again I was watering down my black brush pen just to create that shadow even further. And I do this along all of the side of the lantern, where the other lantern overlaps, and I do this for every single one of the lanterns coming up. One thing to note is the furthest away lantern, the smallest lantern, the lettering on that is not accurate. Same with the lantern just in front of it as well. They're not accurate because you can see them in the distance, and you wouldn't really see the lettering in detail how you would on the main lantern that you see. After this, I use my watercolour gold over the fixtures at the top and bottom that I covered in the whiteboard marker, and you'll see that it's very washy, it's not sticking to it, because like I said, it kind of created a very waterproof kind of texture, and so the watercolours just didn't work very well. But after I let them dry and I laid them up, and then in the end I just wasn't getting the vibrant gold that I wanted, and so I did the little tassels at the bottom with the watercolours, and then I got my Liquitex gold acrylic ink, and I just went over those to create the really gold vibrant look. I used some more of the gold watercolour just to create a little bit of highlighting light kind of reflecting from the gold fixture at the bottom of the main lamp and at the top, and I also went over the light part where the light's shining through just to give it a very glowy look, and same with just left as if it's kind of glowing through. I only did this with the main lamp because I kind of wanted that to be the focal point. I didn't do this with all the other lamps because they were not something I wanted everyone's attention on when they looked at this piece. I then used, I didn't use, this is not a pen that's included in the Scrawlr box, but I used my, what's it called? A white gel pen, I can't remember the one, a jelly roll, a Sakura jelly roll. I use that just to connect the tops of the lamps as if there's a light, you can see the light part of the little piece of string connected them, so they didn't just look like they were floating there in midair. And then I obviously signed it with that jelly roll, and then used my Scrawlr pen fine liner just to go over that, just to dull down the white a little bit because it was quite bright. And that's all I really have to say about this. It was a very challenging box, took me really out of my comfort zone, and in the end I still did a piece of art that wasn't necessarily something I'd usually do, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to do the next month's Scrawlr box, and perhaps in the future maybe do a couple more if I can afford it. So thank you for watching, everyone. See you in my next video.
Hello. Okay, so I haven't done a doodle in a little while, and this video is late because I've been travelling a lot this week, but this is just a really quick doodle. Anyway, I managed to cut it down to just over 4 minutes. So yeah, to start, I actually have some drawing ink by Winsor & Newton in black, and